Wadi El Natrun below the Nile River level. The valley contains several alkaline lakes, natron-rich salt deposits, salt marshes and freshwater marshes. In Christian literature it is usually known as Setis. It is one of the three early Christian monastic centers located in the Nitrian desert of the northwestern Nile Delta. The other two monastic centers are Nitria and Kelia. Setis, now called Wadi El Natrun, is best known today because its ancient monasteries remain in use, unlike Nitria and Kelia which have only archaeological remains. The desertified valley around Setis in particular may be called the Desert of Setis. The area is one of the best known sites containing large numbers of fossils of large prehistoric animals in Egypt, and was known for this in the 1st century AD and probably much earlier. Wadi El Natrun is the common name for a desert valley located west of the Nile Delta, along the El Tahrir Markaz, which is about 10 kilometers west of the entrance to Sadat city on the Cairo-Alexandria Desert Road, and about 50 kilometers from Khattab on the Nile, and it falls below the level of the plateau surface surrounding it about 50 meters. The length of this depression ranges between 55 and 60 kilometers, while its average width is 10 kilometers, and its deepest point reaches 24 meters below sea level. The depression is the smallest depression in the Egyptian Western Desert, with an area of about 500 square kilometers. Therefore, it is true that it is a depression and not a valley, because the region is a closed depression that has a beginning and an end, and it has no source, estuary or tributaries, so the launch of the word wadi on the depression is not topographically correct. The wadi contains 12 lakes, the total surface area of which is 10 kilometers square and their average depth is only 2 meters. The color of these lakes is reddish-blue because its water is saturated with the natron salt. Natron Valley is first attested in the story of the eloquent peasant, and it is mentioned among the list of 7 oases in the Temple of Edfu. In Ptolemaic times it constituted part of the Nitrite nome. It was also known in Coptic as Mountain of Salt. The importance of the Natrun Valley dates back to the Pharaonic era, as the ancient Egyptian and the Libyans fought there many days, and this ended up with the Egyptians overcoming them and annexed the eastern side of the desert, which still belongs to Egypt. Then, Wadi El Natrun became an administrative part of the country in the Pharaonic era, but there is no information about its history during their reign, and the latest writings on the wars between the Libu and the Egyptians indicate that the last of them was in 1170 BC during the reign of Ramesses III. As for the religious significance of Wadi El Natrun, there are many discoveries that indicate that this area was considered sacred as early as year 2000 BC. At the very least among these discoveries is a bust of black granite dating back to the era of the 17th dynasty of the pharaohs. And there is also a granite gate and stones from the lintel of a door bearing cartridges for King Amenemhat I, in a place called the Backbone. The alkali lakes of the Natron Valley provided the ancient Egyptians with the sodium bicarbonate, used in mummification and in Egyptian faience, and later by the Romans as a flux for glass making. The Egyptian Salt and Soda Company Railway was built at the end of the 19th century as a 33 miles long narrow-gauge railway with a gauge of 750 millimeters, which attracted the first tourists to the Wadi. The desolate region became one of Christianity's most sacred areas. The Desert Fathers and Cenobitic monastic communities used the desert's solitude and privations to develop self-discipline. Hermit monks believed that desert life would teach them to eschew the things of this world and follow God's call. Between the 4th and 7th century AD, hundreds of thousands of people from the world over joined the hundreds of Christian monasteries in the Nitrian desert, centered on Nitria, Kelia and Setis. Saint Macarius of Egypt first came to Setis around 330 AD where he established a solitary monastic site. His reputation attracted a loose band of anchorites, hermits and monks who settled nearby in individual cells. Many of them came from nearby Nitria and Kelia where they had previous experience in solitary desert living. Thus the earliest Cenobitic communities were a loose consolidation of like-minded monks. By the end of the 4th century, 4 distinct communities had developed: Baramus, Macarius, Bishoy and John Colobos. At first these communities were groupings of cells centered on a communal church and facilities. But enclosed walls and watchtowers developed over time and in response to raids from desert nomads. Nitria, Kelia, and Salus also experienced internal fractures related to doctrinal disputes in Egypt. At its peak the place contained 700 monasteries. The monasteries flourished during the Muslim conquest of Egypt.